Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Kerr, and this is Our Future in America. This show is going to be a series where we interview leaders and researchers in their respective fields and looking at where we are headed in America. On our inaugural edition this morning, we're honored to have with us Derek Gilbert. Derek is a deep researcher. He is the host of 5 and 10 over at Skywatch TV. Derek, thank you for joining us this morning.
Mike, the honor is mine. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, Derek, as we go down this path, we look at a country right now. We're completely fragmented politically. There's probably not going to be another election process that anyone trusts. We see for the last 2 years have been brutal. Many of us, and you and I recently, have lost friends to this COVID thing. And how do we come back from all of this? Where do you see us going in America?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't know that we do come back from this. It's entirely possible that as we look at end times prophecy in the Bible, what we may be seeing is the unfolding of that prophecy right in front of our eyes. And it's hard because we're so close to the forest that we can't make out the trees. Maybe I'm messing up that analogy, but you get the point. We may not see the shape of things because we're so close to the trees that all we can see is the one right in front of us. But these are things that are leading toward the creation of a one world government. We see the World Economic Forum. The motto of the World Economic Forum over the past couple of years now, Build Back Better, being adopted by Joe Biden. It was his campaign slogan. It's the title of his alleged infrastructure plan, which is really the Reward Joe Biden supporters plan. But we're seeing it repeated elsewhere around the world. We're seeing, Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau here in the West. But just this past weekend at the World Meeting of Popular Movements, which is an initiative of Pope Francis, started back in 2014. They had their first meeting in several years this past weekend. And in addressing this meeting, Pope Francis called for building back better. He didn't use that phrase. It was in Spanish, but it's a rough translation of the English, and calling for a universal basic income and for governments to fundamentally change how resources are redistributed. He's calling essentially for universal socialism. And as I've argued in a couple of books now, one under our title, Veneration, I think we may have written, getting to the point where I can't remember what I've written in which book, but it may have been a Veneration, might have been in Giants, Gods, and Dragons, I'm not sure. Also contributed to a couple of Tom's books, pointing out that archaeologically, we know that the kingdom of Nimrod, which according to the Bible was based in Uruk, the Bible calls it Erech, E-R-E-C-H, just a different spelling of the same name. Modern day, we call it Iraq. But the ancient city-state of Uruk dominated Mesopotamia for most of the 5th millennium BC, roughly 4,000 to 3,000 BC. That kingdom dominated everything from Turkey to the Persian Gulf between the two rivers. And the number one hallmark of an archaeological site that dates to that period is the presence of a really crudely made little clay bowl called the Beveled Rim Bowl. Now, they could make really fine pottery in ancient Mesopotamia, really pretty designs. It's fired. It's, just really well made. The craftsmanship is amazing. Modern sculptors would have trouble working to that level of skill that they had 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. But at the Uruk period sites, they find hundreds, sometimes thousands of these discarded little clay bowls that look like something kids would make out of Play-Doh. And scholars have figured out, based on that and some of the Sumerian symbols used in their writing, that these bowls were used to give out the daily allotment of barley or grain to the workers before they went out to the field. Here is your daily universal basic income. Now go work in the field, serf, and depend on the central government, the kingdom of Uruk, which was Nimrod's kingdom. Depend on Nimrod for your universal basic income. Understand that the leader of the most popular, the largest Christian denomination on planet Earth, just this past weekend, called for a return to the kingdom of Nimrod, universal basic income. Mike, that's the direction we're heading around the world. Now, can we turn it around? Well, I don't know. But the Bible tells us we are going in this direction. And our mission as Christians, Joe Horn and I were talking about this morning as both of us were tearing out our hair over some of the stupidity that's taking place here in the United States. For example, in your home state of California, your state of your birth, there is just an unbelievable backlog of shipping containers. And here in the rest of America, we're looking at empty store shelves. I went looking for a watch battery at the local Dollar General a couple of weeks ago. And I noticed that the battery display, which is usually full, Rayovac, Everready, their own Dollar General brand, bunch of empty hooks in those shelves. And I started looking around at the shelves like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of empty shelves here we're getting to a point where Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart putting limits on the amount of toilet paper you can buy. Why? Because we're not getting stuff to market anymore. As of last week, there were more than 500,000 containers on ships backed up 40 miles out to sea off the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles, waiting to come to port. And we're supposed to believe it's because our economy has just roared back so strong after COVID, well, we're not quite out of COVID yet because we all need to be vaccinated because it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. A lie. It's not that. The reason that the ports are so backed up and we have empty shelves is because California's emission standards, new emission standards, went into effect last year that have effectively blocked half of America's tractor trailer rigs, which could haul those containers from the port to marketplace here in the heartland, can't enter the state of California anymore. It's a government created problem. It is a created problem. And it may not be an accidentally created problem if you want to get conspiratorial. The bottom line, though, is that while we're looking at all of this and tearing out our hair saying, how do we fix this? We need to remember that as Christians, our number one priority is still the Great Commission to make disciples of all nations. If we get distracted by, yes, these can be dangerous problems if necessary products are kept off store shelves, necessary medicines and so forth. We know that we're depending far too much on China for necessary ingredients for some critical medications. But our mission is still to share the hope that we have in Christ Jesus, because the Bible tells us these days were coming. And now that they're getting here, I find myself going, what's going on? Oh, yeah, it's that stuff I read about in Daniel and Revelation. Okay, let's get back to business here, which is sharing the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. Because yes, this life, how we live it is important. God created us to enjoy this creation, to take dominion over planet Earth, but we're members of an eternal kingdom. We're citizens of an eternal kingdom. We belong to a theocracy, not a democracy, not a republic, a theocracy. And we are ambassadors for our king. So let's not let ourselves get too upset about what's happening in the natural realm, because we need to focus on the supernatural.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Derek. And I mean, you look at first of all, it is absolutely no coincidence that Jeannie and I left our birth state and got out of there 6 years ago, because we saw what was coming. And you look at this problem with the supply chain right now, and you can't help but feel that there is manipulation going on in the background. You look at our Secretary of Transportation, he's on maternity leave.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure if it's maternity or paternity. Who's the husband?
I mean, who knows which one's which?
It's really irrelevant. The bottom line is really irrelevant.
I mean, the thing is, Derek, it's like when all of this hits the proverbial fan, and Steve Quayle has been reporting on this for quite some time. When this happens, it seems like today our leaders vanish. Now, I could debate for hours whether they're actual leaders or not, but there's no one at the helm. And you're correct. We see this in California. Florida has offered to take ships. I mean, it's insane what's going on. Don't you feel like there is definitely some form of manipulation happening here?
Well, sure. You've got near monopolies in a number of sectors of our economy. Amazon has put the squeeze to Walmart, much less the mom and pop shops on Main Street, small town USA. And Amazon saw this coming years ago. In fact, there was a really deep dive done by the Last Refuge blog, which is online at theconservativetreehouse.com. And they're the ones who, as far as I know, have really been the only ones reporting on the actual source of the problem in California. Again, being those emissions standards. You've got to have a low emission rig, and there just aren't that many of them out there. Most of the independent tractor trailer operators in the country don't have one of these new low emissions trucks that can pull these. So what's happening is the few that there are hauling containers to the California state line, swapping loads with rigs that can run in the other 47 states here in the lower 48. And it's just ridiculous. But Amazon saw this coming a couple of years ago and started making alternate plans for its supply chain to route ships to ports in Washington State, Vancouver, or to route them around through the Panama Canal, not the Suez, the Panama Canal, and either up to Houston or New York. But both of those are more expensive and take longer. But they didn't say anything because they didn't want to be accused of being unwoke, apparently, because we can't talk about California's emission standards because that would ruin our woke credentials. But other companies too, Costco, Home Depot, others, trying to make their own arrangements to get around the backlog in California. California is putting the squeeze to the rest of the country, and nobody in Washington, D.C., and surely they understand what's going on, but none of them are talking about it. Anyway, yes, it does seem like it's a contrived crisis, which is driving prices up. It is putting the squeeze to the lower classes, the middle class of the United States, which again fits into this whole prophetic endgame, I think, of trying to destroy the middle class, especially in the United States, because we are an annoying obstacle to achieving their goal of recreating the kingdom of Nimrod. You cannot have a class of dependent serfs if you've got people who are relatively self-reliant, and that would be the middle class. Get rid of the middle class so that all you've got are the people at the top of the pyramid and a bunch of people standing there with our little clay bowls waiting for our daily ration of barley.
Yeah, I mean, it's frightening is what it is. Derek, you bring up the woke generation right now. What do you see the biggest threat that generation imposes upon Christians and those of us who may not be hardcore Christians, but people in America? What does the woke generation threaten us with?
Well, cancellation, cancel culture, deplatforming us, but even more than that, taking us completely out of the economy. I mean, we see hints of this. Again, one of the premiers of in Australia, and I forget which one, so I'm not going to name names because I will probably get it wrong and slander the wrong guy. But one of the premiers down there of one of the provinces or states in Australia has said that he's going to keep the unvaccinated out of the economy, at least through 2022, and then make it difficult for people after that who are unvaccinated to re-enter the economy. Well, okay, I think we're getting to a point where that will then be applied to having to wrong think, to use a term from 1984, the Orwell novel. Those of us who express the wrong opinions in public fora, whether it's online or at our churches or wherever, will likely be similarly cut out of the economy. I was talking with Guy Malone about this, our friend in Roswell, who is a certified Bitcoin professional now. We were discussing Bitcoin. In fact, that's his presentation for the ongoing virtual conference from Skywatch TV right now. Is Bitcoin the mark of the beast? And his answer might surprise viewers. I'll leave you. I'll won't spoil that. But we talked about how central bankers around the world now are frustrated by Bitcoin because what Bitcoin does is it takes the power of money creation and out of the hands of central bankers and allows users of Bitcoin to have some financial privacy. You can conduct transactions without the IRS knowing what you're doing. And of course, one of the planks in the current $3.5 trillion spending proposal is to require the IRS or your local bank to send information about your accounts to the IRS if you have a balance over $600 or do more than $600 per year in transactions. Well, that's everybody in America.
Yeah,
So
that's
now
not
Democrats
targeting. That's not targeting the wealthy. It's absurd.
It's not. It's not. And so now they're backing off and saying, okay, $10,000 a year. Well, still, that's almost anyone in America who's got a bank account, even those well below the poverty line in America. If you've got a bank account, you're probably going to do more than $10,000 in transactions over the course of a year. It's not about targeting the wealthy and eliminating tax cheats. It's about total control. Well, central bankers now are developing their own digital currencies. They call CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. China is way in the lead in developing this, but the Bank of England is not far behind. The European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank is looking now at digital dollars and how to create them. But here's the thing. They not only want to create these digital currencies that are controlled by the central banks. I mean, that's bad enough that they would know every transaction you make, everything you buy, with whom you spend the money, and for what would now be a matter of public record. Not a public record, but at least the government would have access to those records. But they want to make these CBDCs programmable, so that they could dictate with these digital dollars what you could spend it on, when you could spend it. Okay, this is a stimulus check. You have to spend it within 30 days or it disappears from your account. You cannot spend it on X, Y, and Z. Oh, Mr. Gilbert, we see your cholesterol level has hit 250. You cannot buy that heavy whipping cream or pound of butter. This is what they're looking to do with these central bank digital currencies. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see how this would fit into the fulfillment of prophecy in Revelation chapter 13 with the mark of the beast, how they could make it impossible for you to buy and sell unless you were part of this. And of course, that would require a mark in the hand or mark in the forehead. But hey, we want to prevent fraud. So this is the next step of digital security. We'll implant it or whatever. It is moving us in that direction. What we're seeing, Mike, is the fulfillment of end times prophecy. And yeah, it can be scary, but we just need to remember God saw all of this coming. None of this is taken him by surprise. He told us this was coming. He also tells us he wins. And as long as we have placed our trust in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, yeah, it's going to be a bumpy ride, but we know who wins. And we're on that side. We are protected by the shepherd. It's like, look, you demons, you fallen angels, you want to mess with me? Shepherd's right behind me. You talk to him because I'm covered. He's the one who's going to defend me. I'm not fighting you with my own strength. That would be foolish to think that I could be a demon slayer on my own accord, on my own power. That's not going to happen. But the shepherd's right here. I'm borrowing this analogy from Sharon in a wonderful talk she's given on the 23rd Psalm. Shepherd's right here. You talk to him. So things are going to get rough. Things won't be easy. I mean, Jesus told his followers while he was still among us in fully human form, you will suffer tribulation. Let's not get hooked on doom porn. The adrenaline rush that comes from seeing something in the news and going, oh, I'm guilty of that. Joe Horn and I, again, we're talking about that this morning, about how easy it is to get into that feedback loop. And praise God for our wives, Catherine and Sharon, for pulling us in off the ledge when things really start getting crazy. Like, dear, you think God woke up this morning, slapped himself on the forehead and said, oh no, what am I going to do? No, he saw this coming. He's got our backs. The greatest general in the history of history. And he's coming back. And he'll be all out of bubble gum.
Well, Derek, I have to bring up when we did the Hear the Watchman conference, the Warriors conference in San Diego, and you were by the pool when we were doing the baptisms. You were led to suddenly share something, and it resonates in my head. And why don't you share that briefly again as to who was risen and who is still dead?
This is something, and I have to give credit where it's due. Dr. Michael Heiser pointed this out. He's talked about this being one of those verses that in the Bible is weird. And if it's in the Bible, it's weird, as Mike says. It's important. He was attending a church years ago, he says, and when the church was going through and doing verse by verse exposition, and really appreciated that, Mike did, and so do I. That's why Sharon and I do our weekly Gilbert House Fellowship as a verse by verse exposition. And they got to 1 Peter 3. And Mike said, okay, this is going to get really interesting because there's some weird stuff here. I want to see what he does with it. And the pastor just skipped it. He said, I don't, this is weird, so I'm just going to skip over it. We'll go to first, we'll move on. Like, what? But as Mike pointed out, and again, this was at in the context of people being baptized in a pool in San Diego, going down into the water and coming up. And as Mike Heiser has pointed out, and he taught this during our tour of Israel when we were at the Jordan River. So the power of this, hearing this as we're about to enter the Jordan River and some people being baptized for the very first time in their lives, was just, it's hard to describe. He points out that 1 Peter 3, beginning at verse 18, reads this: "For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah." Now, it's one thing to make clear here is that the word spirits, the spirits in prison, that word in Greek, spirits, in the New Testament never refers to human spirits unless it's qualified with the word human in front of it. He's talking about supernatural entities. And because this is connected to the days of Noah, we're talking about those sons of God from Genesis chapter 6, who rebelled and came down and saw that the daughters of man were fair and took wives of any they chose. And because of that, according to Peter in 2 Peter 2:4, Jude verses 6 and 7, these are the angels who sinned, who kept not their first estate, their proper dwelling, and are now confined in chains in gloomy darkness, Tartarus, the bottomless pit, the abyss. Jesus Christ descended into the abyss and proclaimed victory to them. And by connecting it to baptism, Peter was telling us that every time someone is baptized, goes down into the water, which in the Bible represents the abyss, primordial chaos, and comes out again, we are echoing what Christ said to those rebellious spirits in the pit. Hey, we got another one, and you're still dead.
It was very powerful. I do think I have a clip of what you did by the pool that I'll release out to people. But you know, Derek, here we are. Okay, we have a country that will never, most likely, trust the electoral process that we have. We are all divided. The church. Now let's just talk about that as we end this up this morning. The church has been deeply divided over all of this. People were saying those who took the jab are not Christian. Others, it would just became an incredible fight that divided the church. How do we repair that as people that are in the forefront of the war? People like you, people like me, people like Steve Quayle, people like Doug Hagman, people like Mike Heiser. What do we do?
Recognize that this is a tool that the enemy, capital E enemy, the principalities and powers behind the scenes, have been using to divide us. This is exactly what they want. They're using this as a wedge to turn brother against brother, sister against sister, the church against itself. And the human actors who are doing this, and this is coming right out of the White House, that they are using vaccination status as a mark to divide us. It has become a political issue. If it's not clear to people, if it's not clear by now, you're really not paying attention, because there are so many examples that we could cite of those who are imposing, creating these mandates, so mask mandates, social distancing mandates, shutting down schools and businesses and so forth, and then turning around, being caught on camera, maskless, partying with friends at a wedding reception or a concert or whatever. You know, it's political. It's really not medical. But the enemy is using this to turn us one against another. Look, I have no problem with anyone who chooses to get vaccinated. I have family members, close family members, blood relatives who've been vaccinated because they decided that it was in their best interests to so do. And if you've got underlying medical conditions, if you're a senior, the cost benefit analysis suggests, yeah, this might be a good idea for you. If you're younger, especially under the age of 60, maybe not so much. And certainly if you're under the age of 25, really think about this and talk to your doctor about it. But if you choose to get the vaccine, I'm not going to disfellowship from you, nor should we in the church. And by the same token, those of us who choose not to be vaccinated, do not plan to get vaccinated unless the Lord makes it clear, look, I've got things I want you to do, and it's going to require you to travel, which is going to require you. We'll see. At this point, Sharon and I have no plan to take the vaccine because there's no long-term data. There's no look, it's not the mark of the beast. Let's just put that right out there. It is not the mark of the beast. There's a lot that happens before the beast shows up, like flaming mountain hitting the sea, wormwood, a lot of massive earthquake, the likes of which the world has never seen. A lot of things happen before the beast shows up, and the beast has to be here for the mark of the beast to be here. I think the central bank digital currencies are more likely to be the mark. So those of you who've taken the vaccine, looking at us who have not taken the vaccine, just study the data. But it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice. If you trust the vaccine and trust in God, that's fine. If you're trusting in God and not taking the vaccine, that's fine too. Let's set this animosity aside, because the enemy wants us fighting with one another, because as long as we're doing that, we are not focusing, just as people like me who get too zeroed in on the politics of the day. If we're distracted by that, vaccine status, or anything, we're not focusing on our core mission, which is making disciples of all nations, sharing the hope that we have in Jesus Christ with gentleness and respect, according to the scriptures.
Amen, Derek. Amen. It's folks, we're in a tumultuous time, and we need to come together, and we need to trust in Jesus to carry us through this. He tells us he will, if we trust in him. And that's where it becomes important that you get right, repent, get right with Jesus right now. Derek, you do 5 and 10 every Monday through Friday at Skywatch TV. Mm-hmm. What else is on your calendar for this next year?
Well, we're continuing to produce Unraveling Revelation as we go through the Bible and show how the whole Bible is tied to the book of Revelation. You can't understand Revelation and end times prophecy unless you understand everything from Genesis through Jude. So I thought we'd get maybe 50 episodes out of it, and then we'd exhaust the topic. We're only up to Revelation 12, and I think we just recorded episode 112. So that we release every Monday. And the new program, The Bible's Greatest Mysteries, is now out, and it is being broadcast on the PTL network. Tom Horn has got a new 2-hour block of programs from Skywatch TV. Skywatch TV, The Bible's Greatest Mysteries, a new women's show featuring Nita Horn, Catherine Horn, Donna Howell, and Allie Henson. That's called Simply His. And then a health program featuring Sharice Parton that is called Return to Eden. That's broadcast on Sunday afternoons in a 2-hour block on the PTL network around the country. But you can also see The Bible's Greatest Mysteries at biblesgreatestmysteries.tv. And right now we're in a 4-week series of interviews with Timothy Alberino, and some fascinating stuff there. So, and we got some great stuff coming up. Interviews with L.A. Marzulli, with Dr. Michael Heiser, with some of the archaeologists digging at the site of ancient Sodom in Jordan. They found Sodom, I'm convinced. So, some really, really exciting stuff coming up on that program. And we pray that we can get out and do some traveling. We're trying to arrange and see if we can put together a tour. We've got the Israel tour scheduled for March. We'll see what the Israeli tourism ministry allows. And we're trying to put together a tour of Turkey right now to go to the Churches of Revelation and Göbekli Tepe.
Wow. Well, that's exciting stuff, Derek. Well, listen, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank all of you for joining us on this Monday morning. This show will be released every Monday and Friday mornings. Our next guest will be Michael Boldea, Dimitri Duduman's grandson, an amazing man of God. And we'll be talking with him about where he sees the future of America. So for Derek Gilbert and myself, Mike Kerr, thank you so much. God bless. Don't forget, never give up, and always help your brothers and sisters. We'll see you Friday. Thank you.